Hi everyone, welcome back to the Long Way Back podcast. I'm your host today, Timmy Long, with my co-host Donald Clifford. And today we have a very special guest down from Limerick. We have Catherine O'Halloran. I definitely had to get that right because he pronounced the O'Halloran differently a little bit in Limerick. So how are you, Catherine?
I'm really good, and I'm really glad to be here, and I'm really glad to see you back up and running.
Thank you.
Because I've been a real admirer of your work and how you work. I think it's really beautiful how you engage in conversation with people. So I feel really privileged to be here.
Do you want to give people a description of what you do?
Sure. I don't think there's been a time ever where I've had to describe myself that I don't feel cringed out. And I've been doing this 20 years. And I think it's because none of the words that I'm going to use to describe myself do it justice, because
100%.
We're all so much more than the titles that we have. So, but I will participate anyway. So I am a psychotherapist. I'm an artist. I'm an academic. I've been in academia for about 16 years. So I'm currently doing a PhD, looking specifically at trauma, the convergence of trauma, masculinity and culture. And I am the managing director of an organisation called Limerick City Build, based in Limerick, of course. I'm also a working class woman, a mother, a bit of an agitator, a bit of a disruptor. And
we like the disruptors here.
Yeah, that's good. I'm in good company. And I suppose in terms of all of those things, I recognise that I'm very unconventional in my approach to all of that, in terms of my professionalism and even being a psychotherapist, in that field. For me, I used to imagine that it was such a privileged kind of discipline, which it is still. And so I really want to hold on to, which is a challenge, hold on to the working classness of me in all of those spaces. So growing up, you grew up in Limerick? I grew up I'm from St. Mary's Park originally, the Island Field, where all my family is from. Which is it is a tough area currently. We moved out when I was about 6, I think. And we moved to a more middle class area. And I think that then, when I reflect on my own history and how it influences what I do today, that really gave me a sense of being an outsider, because I belonged nowhere. Yeah. I didn't belong no longer did I belong in the island, because, you've notions about yourself if you live in Corbally. And I carried so much shame with me my whole life, because I could pick up on my mother's shame from where she came from and the trauma that she emerged from in all of her family. My father left the family home, so that was kind of scandalous in terms of the community that we were in, and it was very public, and so there was an awful lot of shame. Which
can I ask you a question about that there? The shame. Donnie, we often spoke about this numerous occasions. That shame, when did you actually realise what it was? Because I went through my whole life not knowing why I actually felt full of shame.
I think I recognised pretty early on that I will never belong or feel like I belong to any kind of tribe that I ever even kind of, participated in or hung out with briefly. Never felt a sense of connection or being plugged in or being part of. Today, that serves me. It's like a gift that I have now, because I can stand on outside the line and say, I can be the 1 in 20 that says, no, I'm not going to be offering consensus to things that I feel like are unethical. So it's a superpower now, but then it was a real challenge for me. And I suppose my father is in recovery, has been since, I was the first child of him being sober. So that was a pretty significant thing, I think, in shaping in my view of what spirituality and recovery and a program that offers hope because that's what it offered my family, can do for someone. And so for a few short years, I experienced that within the household. I experienced him getting well. And just that sense of, it was just very hard to put into words, but I know that that's something that I have kind of integrated quite deeply, that, you know, the introduction of new ideas, of, you know, reading new literature and spirituality. The spiritual aspect of the 12 steps was very much felt experience in the house, and just it brought a light that wasn't there anymore. And then
had you many other brothers and sisters? Kat?
Yeah, so I have 4 sisters.
And were they older than you?
So 2 older, 2 younger. Okay. So I was a middle child, and the child then that I suppose, you know, the 2 older sisters would have experienced my father in alcoholism, and the 2 younger would have experienced an absence of my father. So I was at a kind of a point of juncture. So there was that then that kind of, you know, they're kind of core influential pieces in terms of where my career led me. You know, I often reflect on, why do I do what I do? Why do I feel a sense of, you know, really drive towards this work? And I look back and I reflect on these kind of moments that I feel like are pretty significant in that. Yeah. So I suppose then just kind of, I went on then to pursue, I think I remember my first class in philosophy. I just felt like I found where I belonged.
Was that in college or in secondary school?
Yeah, in university, yeah. Hated school. Nobody gave a shit. My family was in a bit of chaos. My parents had separated. No one cared if I was there or not there. And so, but I had the potential to be quite gifted in school, but, you know, I
would have been easily to go down the wrong path that way as well.
And I did. I was very, very destructive with alcohol for a very long time. And so, but I still managed to get up and go to work or go to college, or, you know, so I functioned quite well, but I had a very destructive relationship with alcohol for a long time until I stopped.
But also it sounds like you had high self-esteem, like that drive was naturally...
Well, it was just like this kind of insatiable appetite to understand why. Why do human beings behave the way they do? And maybe, you know, the beginning of that was trying to understand why my father might have made the choices he did, why my mother made the choices she did, why did our family end up the way that we do? Because we're always trying to rectify or redeem some part of our own history.
So before you move away from that, because that kind of ties back into something you said there, did you come to a conclusion? Just briefly, what was your conclusion?
My conclusion is that's always alive in me, and that I don't want to ever, like, you know, shame myself out of that. That that's okay, that that's there, but that there needs to be, you know, balance as well. That can't be the only thing in the way, because it can prevent us from seeing the person in front of us. Yeah.
See, I was listening to you as you're talking about the spirituality in your dad. Do you think it tied into that?
Yeah, I think I was introduced to, it's really interesting, like, because I've looked at spirituality and just like, you know, why do some people believe and other people don't? And, you know, the limits of our belief and, you know, why is it that some people believe in, you know, and not omnipotent, you know, source?
Do you think it changes in time in recovery? For like, some people naturally believe. Some people are so broken and they feel so left down by not just by human beings, but in a general aspect, whatever is out there, God, the universe, whatever it may be. And people just completely rebel against everything. And the reason I'm saying this is because I would have been one. I when I was asked to get on my knees and ask God for help in early recovery, I was saying,
yeah, what fucking God is there?
There was nothing there. There was nothing there to fucking protect me when I needed protection when I was small and stuff like that. But you know, as things started to happen in my life, good things, the early recovery, I started to realise, you know, I started to really realise then that, you know, my prayers were answered. They just weren't answered back then. It took time for them to be answered. And now when I look back, again, a long time later, I look back and I'm grateful for the life I had because of the resilience that was gained from it. You know, the ability to get through stuff today that I never in my whole life thought I'd ever get through. But it's all stemming from, and you know what, I often go back and I just think how resilient that child was. I swear, you know.
Resilience is a really fascinating
how that
thing.
child got through stuff, you know, so that's just kind of my opinion on the kind of spirituality
Yeah, absolutely.
thing.
It's something that I think not everyone, rarely is it something that, you know, you have since childhood, you know, and maintain. It's something that I suppose my research has kind of revealed that early attachment with mother in particular has a really strong correlation with people who have a sense that there is someone out there looking after me.
Okay.
So when you have a really young, you know, when the infant is cared for or cries and there's someone out there that just responds, there's yet we don't have a sense of other because we're way too small. That then creates an ability to imagine as adults quite easily that could be possible too.
What's the opposite of that?
So the opposite to that is exactly what you're talking about, is that a failure to meet my needs, even though I didn't even know what they were, couldn't articulate them, but yet I used the only means I had, which was my cry, and my cry wasn't responded to. And so not only did I not develop a sense of self out of a failure to respond to those needs, but that it's hopeless. There's a sense of hopelessness that gets really embedded with us. And I think that can be the hardest thing as a therapist to work with because it's so primitive in the system. And then you're trying to introduce, and I suppose that's the resistance then to, you know, in recovery or in any kind of sense of rehabilitation, you know, because the principles are the same, you know, really, even if we extend the 12 steps out, you know, into any sense of rehabilitation. We're all on a healing journey, really. But that, you know, I can see a pattern where sustained healing, because not necessarily a fan of the word change, but sustained healing or transformation or expansion always seems to have with it an aspect of spirituality, a recognition or a reclaim of spirituality.
Knowing that there's something else there helping you to get through your day.
That my ego isn't the most powerful thing in the universe.
That it's not, you're not ran on self-will.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's okay to leave something else in the control and to know that you haven't got power over everything. You know, you're powerless over a lot of things, and we are, even though a lot of human beings don't like to say that they don't have power over a lot of stuff, but we are. And I think it's for me, that was one of the most important things in my recovery, my well-being, was to know to hand stuff over.
Yeah.
You know, just to understand that, okay, maybe it's not for me.
It feels good, doesn't it? Yeah.
It's and a word I use a lot because of the way it helped me was, and it can be confusing as well for some people, is acceptance. Acceptance can be vocalized in the mind and you can understand it as in, I just have to accept it. But for me, the acceptance stuff would have been just sitting still, you know, around the emotional stuff. No, not the external stuff with people and stuff like that. Whatever you have to do there is different. But the emotional stuff that comes up, the stuff in the head that's there, the patterns, the negative thoughts and stuff. For years, like, I would have fought all that stuff because that was just my way of life. I fought everything because of the environment I was growing up in. You know, can you relate to that?
100%. Yeah, I'm following you. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's just...
that defense mechanism of fight is really connected to masculinity, because like the fight defense is fueled by testosterone. So it's really successful defense. And thank God that you had that grit to say, I'm going to push back against this. And that's the resilience. So, and for women, sometimes, we'll take it inward into ourselves and kind of ruminate on it and find a place maybe to repress it or oppress it or deny it or dissociate. And men tend to kind of fight back. That's why we see men exercise so much aggression in the world. And we really judge that instead of understanding why that's happening, that there's they're flooding of testosterone because of so much threat. And that the only way that they can, and so what does that make us do then? It makes us go into fight. But it works, you see. It works to take us away from that stuff that you're talking about.
Genuinely, I think you're spot on.
Yeah, me
and
too.
I really do believe if people could start to understand that, because what I see happening at the moment is people are telling people, don't be that way. Don't be angry. Don't be this. And it's a natural emotion that comes up inside us, in men in particular.
Well, I think it's even greater than that. It's don't be a man is what the message is.
That's the message. Yeah. And it's like, like the message I hear a lot is be in touch with your feminine side and don't be in touch with your masculine side. But that's
so nature. What we've decided is that there's, a way to be, which is ultra feminine, in its traditional sense. And that if men don't prescribe to that or somehow surrender all the rest of themselves to fit into that, then they're toxic. Which is so damaging because, innately, biologically, in every sense of the word, men need different things in the world than women. Men, I often say, if you ever question, the reasons why people behave the way they do, just look at the biology, look at nature. So women literally take things into their body to create. We take things inside. And men are all about outputs in society. So you look back through the history of time and men have built the world because they like to see things external as part of themselves.
It gives them a sense of accomplishment.
But it's pride. Also a part of kind of how you...
prove that you're more of a man.
And also attract the female sex. So there's loads of biological reasons and evolutionary reasons for it. But disenfranchise a community...
like sever them.
So you'll sever them at the ankles, bring them to their knees, the men especially, deny them of work. And then what happens? Their masculinity cannot possibly be healthily acquired. So what will they do? Because there's a native desire in every man to... be an entrepreneur or to create. And so that gets channeled then into the next available thing, which is I'll be the expert entrepreneur in criminality and the drug trade, and you have to admire the skill involved in that. But the
amount of energy that goes into it.
Yeah, but the acumen in that, they're little accountants, they're swift, they're agile, they're some of the, you apply all those skills to business, even in terms of how the markets can be run from your bedroom now, and you'd have little geniuses. But I think that's what happened is there was a real crisis in the aftermath of the feud in Limerick. We had the same epidemics he had in terms of addiction, and no one knew what to do, and people were responding in the best way that they knew how. Agencies were cropping up everywhere. But I think what I began to recognize, and this led into how we started Limerick City Build, was that, we're missing something really fundamental. Everyone was screaming about jobs, opportunity, that's the way, but the damage had already been done. So it was about trauma for me. And
this
that's
is an interesting conversation for you, the trauma stuff, isn't it? But just before we get to that, right? You what did you study in college?
So, the list is long. I started studying architecture and design.
I want to leave people know where that comes in then because of your studies.
And that's still used today, and I'll explain a little bit about that in a while. And then I had my son, which kind of disrupted my studies a bit. Then I got back into it, and I studied psychology, addiction studies. there was a series of various diplomas in around all of that. And then I did my postgrad in psychotherapy, integrative psychotherapy, and then my master's in psychotherapy. And now I'm pursuing my PhD.
And what's the PhD about?
So it is just looking at that kind of window of masculinity, culture, and trauma.
Okay.
And just how, and it's not really a kind of gender study, it's really just about how psychological and cultural factors that tell men they have to be strong, or they have to be aggressive, or they have to be, really respond to threat in a very kind of adversarial way. Sometimes that can obscure our clinical kind of perception of what's really going on with someone, which it obscures trauma essentially. So we can't really tell the difference between a persona that has been created in response to a very terrifying community, or historical trauma. And I suppose that's the kind of focus really of my studies.
And the studies, were they based in Limerick? Did you do?
Yeah, so the population is specifically in the kind of regen communities of Limerick, because we target across the city, which is quite unique. We're probably one of the only projects that works with young offenders from across the city, because I suppose when we started, that was, you just don't do that, because there's still,
the friction there.
There was a feud in Limerick, as you're well aware of, and there was the kind of sons of the feuding families, and there was still a piece to do around making that safe for them to feel like that they could kind of leave their communities. I mean, at one stage, you could talk to people from St. Mary's Park and they would have never left the community for, unless it was for, real.
Can you explain that fear for like you've been up there all your life, and you've been speaking to all the different families from every side of the city. Can you just leave people know the fear that's instilled into children and women? The men are doing their thing in their little gangs and pockets and stuff like that. Yeah. But what about the women that are at home with the kids?
The women were as involved.
Yeah.
Like it was out in the community, so it didn't. No one was isolated from it. No one was protected from it. Children and women and young teens were all exposed to it. Anyone coming up, growing up through that, would have been very aware that I'm going to have to take up the
arms.
I'm next, and whether that goes against my ability at the moment to even figure out whether I have that in me or not, I'm going to have to find it from somewhere.
Or become it.
That breaks my heart.
That's fucking challenging.
That breaks my heart, because I see that today. The one thing, someone asked me a question about, what do you think is common among all the people that you work with? And I know they won't like to hear this, but it's fear.
Mm.
And it's the thing that we don't really like to talk about. It's uncomfortable for men to talk about. But when we have to become...
They don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
No.
It's uncomfortable for anyone to admit it. It's like, fear is the thing that we have been... it's the one feeling I think we resist the most. We're more inclined to embrace anger or allow anger, but fear is like, get out of my body, get as fast as you can. It's really hard to live with because it's such an embodied experience and emotion. Animals deal with it by just running and, exercising it out because it's a feeling that has to move. So all of them have fear. And it's fear of if someone really, if they really looked close enough, they'd realize that I'm not cut out for this.
I'm vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's there. There's a big, for somebody to look into that though. There's a lot of stuff in the way for them to have the awareness to look into this and have the courage then to say, maybe not just to themselves, but to everybody around them. I'm not made for this at all, because you're actually expected. If you grow up in these sort of areas and families, you're expected to do your thing.
Yeah.
And for you not to do, like, stand up and do your thing, it can be damaging to you as well as a person.
Absolutely. You lose all credibility. And I think it's not just in response to what's happening in the community. It's already been happening at home. Yeah. So you might be in a fatherless family. And so who's going to teach you how to integrate masculinity? Where do you even get, like, you know, if it's just a single parent family, you're already at a loss. You're already in a state of crisis. You're already terrified because you do not have within you any even motif to say, okay, I can use that to.
What my experience is, you have something that's perceived. Like you have the lads on the street and you see and you kind of see this is how they walk around, but you don't have the understanding that's what's underneath all of that. So you might have a dad at home that would say to you, look, those boys out there, they're afraid as everyone else. So then you kind of have to step up and do things that maybe don't naturally sit right with you.
No, they're against your nature.
Exactly.
Which is an assault on yourself.
Exactly. And then what I notice with people is when they do those things, like when we've done things that are wrong and don't match with our own sense of who we really are, but we do them, then you're left with a story of, I'm bad.
Well, you're left with more trauma. So
exactly.
This is the paradox
but also
of
your
trauma.
belief around kind of, well, I think I'm this nice person in my core, but then actually I'm not, because I've done A, B, C, D, and I have to do A, B, so that means I'm bad. Yeah. And that's what I find is the struggle with people.
The inner conflict around that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like in my nature, I would have known, I'm actually a good person by nature, but I've done this. So society tells me then I'm bad, and that's my own belief now. I'm a bad person. And that's what I find the struggle with people. That society still sees things in a binary way. Probation, justice, like law, we still perceive behavior in a good versus bad, legal versus illegal. I mean, it's madness. I was speaking to the police commission authority around this, and it's like, you know, that's the piece that needs to change. Young people are meant to push against society's rules. That's their job. That's like a developmental stage. Like, we should not be like surprised by that in any way. Yeah. But what should never be compromised ever is, you know, the kind of moral upholding of how we respond to that. Because without that, then we're just on the ground in the mud with them wrestling. And we're all children. And there's no one being an adult to provide some kind of relational model for how we get well again. And I think in Limerick City Build, what's really important for me is that every morning we have a kind of therapeutic group where we discuss this stuff, and we get to that place where people can acknowledge, I'm afraid. It's fear. And I'm like, can you name it as that? Because you know, we might use different words.
If you're asking men that have been through all this stuff, feuding and through the life of crime, and to admit that they're feeling fear, that's I don't care what anyone says, that's probably the most difficult thing that any man will ever have to do, is actually say, I'm afraid. Because what you're actually doing is you're leaving your guard down and you're showing people your vulnerability. And in certain areas like this, if you show vulnerability, you will be pounced upon.
Yeah.
So I suppose there's two things to that. One is that we create a community of safety. And what I mean by that is, like, and I won't go into this too much because I know we don't have all night to discuss it, but it means that first the work begins with the staff. And it's like, can we have a relational capacity that can hold truth and intimacy? Can you come to me and say, Ka, you kind of pissed me off this morning, something happened and it just didn't sit right with me, and that we not imagine that it will descend into conflict. Can we be that?
It's powerful.
Yeah. And so, like, every morning we have a team meeting, and, you know, it's just process oriented. We just go with whatever is emergent, and it's normally the very thing that we need to discuss together. And we really, really get into, the ditches
Stuff.
with it.
So
yeah.
it's what you're kind of describing is this kind of sense of rupture repair, and maybe
Absolutely.
practicing how we do the repair piece. Because
Yeah.
we all know, like you and me in our friendship, we've had plenty of ruptures. We have.
Isn't it beautiful that there's
you talk
repair?
about them?
But we do, and we go back nearly straight away, and we've had some serious ones, but we've learned, luckily,
You have
two
to
of us.
talk. You have to talk.
And we'll say what happened
know, if
first.
it's- if
Because I think
yeah.
when you talk about like this model that we've created, it's like, oh, you must think you're all part, and I'm like, no, we're all extremely flawed. It doesn't matter if we get triggered, but we're willing to be authentic about it.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like my whole life has been a quest to bring it to the real. How real can we get with each other? How real can we tolerate with each other?
Yeah, that's
How
it.
authentic can we really be? And what places make us flinch and make us want to retreat? And then let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And then there could be clients that, for some reason I just cannot generate rapport. So we'll explore that. And then it makes the work of the therapeutic group work so much more contained and
That's
it's
fruitful.
held in something that is genuine. It's not an espoused, superficial kind of, application of trauma-informed work. It really is, because I'm in this process with you too. I'm not separate. I'm willing to go to those places as well. And that's why I fought for the program. I had so much pushback against developing this program. You would not believe. First of all, I was talking about trauma as far back as like 10 years ago. Everyone thought I was insane, especially combining it with education. It's like, how do those worlds aren't compatible? And I was like, there is a way to do this.
Let's talk about that trauma stuff a little bit.
Yeah.
Your beliefs in it.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
I suppose, like, when I started working and realizing that, and we would hold those same values anyway, within the discipline of psychotherapy. It's like, there's nothing new in the literature around trauma that we haven't been doing for a long time.
Long time.
Within the therapeutic space. Yeah. Would you agree?
100%.
Yeah. So, but now we have, but I did recognize that we were dealing with people who had ruptured attachments early on, and kind of the adversities that it experienced needed to be tended to in a therapeutic way. I really recognize that. And there was models coming out by people like Stephanie Covington and other people who really had put together remarkable evidence-based work that I knew, we could apply. And they unanimously, the powers that be were saying, no. But we went ahead and self-funded it anyway. And now I feel like, what we were advocating for then, now when we talk about trauma-informed practice, it feels like it's been condensed into this, very easily consumable package, which, you can't put a time limit on the work of therapy at all. And that, it's, the training is like 2 days, maybe 2 weeks if you're lucky. And it's like, what have you learned from that? Oh, that you give someone a glass of water when they come in and you offer them a seat. And it's like, they know nothing about how to work through an intervention if someone is distressed. Now, I'm not saying we need psychotherapists everywhere. Well, that would be the utopian view of things if we had all the money in the world. But for organizations to become more equipped to respond to trauma, I think they need to really invest further in, because there are aspects of psychotherapy that could be utilized and applied to, youth work, community development work, addiction services, education, across the board of services would all benefit if they were humanistic, truly client-centered, because people throw around that word and, you ask them what it means and they're kind of dumbfounded.
It's kind of, can I just jump in with you? If you don't mind, because you hit a kind of a sore point there for me. that's been thrown around a bit. It's client-centered. And it was, and there was a real push for it. I noticed for a couple of years, but I'm kind of observing, I think, a little bit of that's kind of disappearing a little again, where it's more professional-centered and what we know is right for the client without, I think you're talking about the trauma-informed care of it, without, and you also put in the developmental piece without understanding all of those pieces together.
I know.
And they're kind of saying, oh, but he was in prison and that's the trauma. And oh, well, we'll give him this much treatment and he should be here without understanding, like, it's probably going back to his earliest life experiences.
Yeah, like,
and so everything is getting watered down because
my brain want to explode.
Yeah, it's, I think what's the kind of way I put it is a little information is dangerous.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot, and we're pushing all these different agendas without really having a good understanding.
They want to tick a box.
Exactly.
They've reduced it to a box.
It's
like everything
we're funding for this.
We've done it. We've done the trauma part. We don't need you, Catherine, to actually do any training with our staff. We've done it. See, we did it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, what have you learned from it? What changes has the organisation applied as a result of it?
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
Because you're all still doing the very same thing that you were doing before. Now, I'm not saying that any of these places aren't, really attempting to do good work. And I never, ever want to sound like I'm resentful or, because I know people have dedicated their lives to their vocation. Yeah. But I think it is something, in terms of like, the power holding, funding organizations really that need to wake up to this and see that, first of all, we need to work with offenders, young offenders, even just those on the margins, and extend the period of work for as long. So like my mantra is as long as it takes. People say, how long is your program? And what are the KPIs? And I say, people feel loved, just to kind of see what their reaction is. And just like that's the biggest one. It's like, what if our only...
What's your measuring stick?
Yeah, love is my measuring stick. That's
and I just to touch in that case anybody thinks I'm totally kind of dampening everything that's been done. I'm not, because in Cork, we have Cork Alliance, which is very similar to Limerick City Build. They're very similar to each other, and there's amazing work being done there. And I go in there regularly and I see kind of how they have it set up and how they greet people, and it is really as long as the client needs it, like they don't do a half a job. And there is other organizations out there like that who who understand it at a deeper level. Yeah. But then, like you said, this idea of KPIs, I'm sorry, oh Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
these are people, but we're measuring.
KPI.
So it's a key performance indicator, right? So that's where you'll get your funding. Is like, we want outcomes and results, and measurable outcomes and results, right?
How well is this person doing?
So how do you measure like the growing sense of self? Like, your podcast is called The Long Way Back, and back to where?
There's no end. It's just a recovery journey, isn't it?
But it's back to yourself, isn't it? It's back to the home that lives within yourself. So
turn
that into a KPI for me there, Timmy.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Have we enough?
You know what I mean? It's impossible.
We probably run out of electricity.
It's impossible because it's metaphysical, it's phenomenological, and it's spiritual. And there are things that nobody wants on the agenda.
No.
So if I said, okay, I'm taking everything off the agenda, and all we're going to talk about is the presence of God and the power of love, people would freak out.
You probably wouldn't have many people left.
Yeah.
I know. Many left in the room.
They've tried before.
It's not there's anything about religion or God or anything.
Not at all.
It's just times are changing fast, and people are finding their own way of spirituality, because there's no two people have their own.
Not at all.
It's
innate.
It's so different.
And
but there was something you said there. I know we can continue this conversation, but I'd like to maybe go back to maybe some of the groups that you do with the lads above, some of the maybe long-time prisoners, lads who have spent a lot of time in prison, and just explain a little bit what happens in those groups with the lads.
So I think there's a real difference between working with young people who are, because when you're young, you just think you have, that there's no sense of limits to what you can do. You have no sense, the clock isn't ticking in terms of your life cycle at all, and you feel like you're invincible when you're young, until such time as you have enough charges that like your solicitor is saying, this is it, kiddo. And then they'll run to me and go, please help me. So there's that group, which, we
were all there.
Yeah, of course. And my work is
good times.
And I can like really confidently say that from the point of them engaging in our program onwards, offending stops completely.
Powerful.
That is really powerful, yeah, because they know by looking at me. I mean, we have, loads of research to tell us what happens when someone meets another person and how we read authenticity in somebody. And immediately they know that I'm going to be okay here.
Yeah.
And
they can sense it.
They can just,
even though they're probably not
their
emotionally.
intuitive nervous system just feels, okay, good. And then we work on that, and we really work on deeply connected relationships, and we're there for them in every single sense of their needs. There's no like, I have a letter from the dole, or I have this, we'll really tend to them because they don't have in many cases, they mightn't have the support at home to do those things, or someone that's clued in even, because it's very intimidating, some of the level of that work that needs to happen. And but then there's another group, and they're the lads that have served longer sentences, 10 years or more, or maybe life sentences. And I suppose the thing that really kind of reminds me that, there is a place in us that no matter how much we try to destroy ourselves, no matter how much no matter how many drugs we take, no matter how much destruction we wreak, no matter how much of society we try to kind of destroy, there is a place in us that remains pristine, like untouched by the world. And I feel like solitude can really reconnect you with that place. It's almost like, I mean, there should be more studies on this, because I think across the board, life sentence prisoners who come out, all of them have a desire to do good to society. And that just humbles me so much. Like I have chills just saying that out loud again. And when I hear them talk and give testimony, and it's like, how in all of the torturous childhood that you've had, has some part of you remained like alive inside? The light has been kept on somehow.
Why do you think that is? Just your opinion.
I think, personally, I just think that that's proof of God. Like,
it's part of, it's
that,
just,
that the God in all of
God.
us.
It's in every one of us. And it's
the
always
part of
there.
us that's there. Yeah.
And it's even it's in people that do really, 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 really bad things. It doesn't matter. I believe every human being on this planet has that. And some people are so traumatized and destroyed in their upbringing.
But if they only knew, and if they could only like touch into that just for a moment, to remind them of the truth of who they are, because they have believed that they're worthless. They believe that they're not worthy of love because none of their attachment needs have been met. They believe that they're lost, that they're lonely, that they're isolated, that they're disconnected, that they'll never connect, that they're, all of these things that they've been told, as well as all of the kind of internal critic that they might have had, which can be, and as well as the abuse they might have suffered, if they only knew that there was a place in them that actually...
And I'll add another piece to that. From my experience of working with lads who've done kind of longer sentences, is they get to witness other men and kind of what... Like, I think the privilege I've had is I get to work with lads from Cork Alliance, and I get to witness, and it is a privilege, men who've been really, really hurt, but men also who are the most gentle of men. And you get to see the humanity of them, and then what has had to happen to them. And it's like they suffered early on in life, then they brought suffering on themselves, and then they have to go back and suffer some more. And what I see is men who have done longer sentences and get to spend time around these men, they see the humanity in them. That's my sense of it, that when I see lads who've spent so long inside and in and out of prison, they get to witness these men. Yeah. On top of everything that you're saying,
absolutely, yeah,
that they touch into their own spirituality, but they also see, like, I remember meeting some men and saying, Jesus Christ, like how is he even still alive?
Yeah.
Like what in his head?
Yeah, I just don't think we recognise the level of miracle in that. You know, I just really don't.
Yeah. And the strength in it. You were talking about resilience earlier on with Tim, and what that must take for a man. Yeah. Like to witness all of that and to hear their stories and witness their stories and the suffering and just to add to your piece.
And that's powerful. You know? That's powerful, Donny, because the reason I wanted to speak about those groups and what you added to there about the lads in the Cork Alliance. Because before this, we were talking about trauma-informed classes and stuff for people. Who better to talk about trauma-informed than people with lived experience?
Oh, I know.
If you bring them into a room of people that are doing a 2-day course and bring in a man and a woman in either day and talk about trauma and talk about why they behaved in certain ways in their lifetime, you will completely twist people's minds instead of them sitting through a 2-day course reading out of a book.
Yeah, it's the difference like between viewing the world through behaviour being a choice, through viewing the world being and seeing that it was the only choice. It was the only way that they could cope with the circumstances that they were living in. And that is a real radical shift where you move from a place of judgment to a place of empathy. Like when we had that meeting last week, we had the head of the research department from TUS Moilish. And, you know, we were talking about that there should be some micro-credential or some credit given to, you know, this level of lived experiences, like, you know, on another standard. Like none of us, well, I'm a woman who's never been in prison, so it's just a constant humbling and fulfilling experience for me, because I learned so much more every time. I never stop learning through the share, and there's something so humble in them. I think it's the kind of the egolessness of what's being presented and just the humility, because they've kind of been to the bottom of themselves. Yeah.
They know the ego stuff doesn't serve them anymore. And what happens is men thaw out, Donald, in recovery. They thaw out. It's just they know what served them once upon a time in that game, in that environment, in those circles of people, whereas criminality and drugs will not serve them in normal society. And you cannot live a normal life. And I know that for myself. You know, I had carried some of that stuff, the anger into, and people don't want you, like people in who are getting on with their lives, going to work, bringing up their families. They don't want people that are full of anger, but because they don't understand where the anger is coming from.
That it's really fear.
You know, they don't understand it. And then for people like me and you and other men that have been in prison and people that you're working with, they just, when they see another door being closed in their face because of their past, even though they're trying to change and get and build a life for themselves, and people aren't allowing them get on with it and be integrated into society, what happens? They flip back. Sure, I wanted to hear it all. I never gonna, and it happened to me. Happened to me. I nearly lost my mind over it because it was so difficult for me to get a job. It was so difficult to even have a social life because of my past and the way I was before.
Do you think that, and there's obviously there's a societal piece that we need to work on around prejudice and stigma, but there is also a piece around, you know, what our own internalized prejudice and stigma can do to sabotage our own success. And I think, you know, there's examples of people who just never really kind of identified with I'm an ex-prisoner, but that's not all I am, was something someone said to me lately. And I just thought, that's why you've never had an issue getting employment. It's because you don't bring that with you. And so people don't experience that when you don't bring that with you. It might be just
that's
words
rare.
on paper. It's rare.
That's
it
rare.
Is. But I think that's the work we need to do, is just to say that you are not the worst thing that has ever happened to you. You're so much more than that. And then it's to find the more than that, so that they actually have a felt sense of that they can tap into and bring with them.
And that's an important point that ties into your piece. But like you said, Catherine, about I'm a woman who was never in prison. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but men who've been in prison need women who weren't in prison to accept them. You can't just be accepted by men in prison.
That's powerful. Yeah.
And like we would have needed the likes of Sheila and Cork Alliance, the Catherines of Limerick. And we need more people like that to say, it's people outside of that. And lived experience for me is very important.
It really is.
But also people like Catherine, who just accept me, even though she's never been there, but she doesn't have a problem with me.
Judgment.
With no
whatsoever.
judgment. She understands it. She wants to understand it. She might not understand it completely, but she does understand it, or whatever.
Yeah.
But having that piece is...
And why does she accept me?
Exactly.
Like, what is it about me that she sees? Because I often say that, love is such a complete force that it can't see anything but potential in somebody. Yeah. So because there's no fear in love, so it won't see anyone's inadequacies. It will see only their potential. And when you can look at someone with an unconditional love, which is what I have for all of them when they come through the door, it's like, you see the potential in me. And we have to bear witness to one another. Yeah. It has to be witnessed in order for it to be experienced.
Yeah. Do you know, if they don't, and I'm going to say this out, we will, guys like that, are the guys that are walking into your room, and me, like, and Darren and all the lads, we will read your body language in moments the minute we walk in the door. And if your body language doesn't
even match, your eye contact,
it's gone. It's like we're lost. We feel judged straight away, and you'll just be another person then that has judged us like the rest of them.
And we'll react as we normally
react. And we will, and we'll fuck off.
You'll fuck off. Yeah. You won't come back to the next appointment. So absolutely.
But the importance of that body language from
I couldn't do what I do and maintain it, because it's so intense. It requires so much of me, unless that was an authentic and genuine
introduction
response that I had to somebody. Like that I really feel that when I see you, especially when I hear your story, it just makes my love for you even grow, because you made it in that door. So to me, you're all, and I say this without any slither of patronization in it, is that they're all my heroes for making it in that door, because I don't know if I would have. That's the thing. Is that just making it in that door alone just makes you all powerful, absolute heroes. And that's where we're starting from.
And the courage that takes to walk in the door.
Not knowing who's there.
Exactly. And am I going to be judged again? Or what hoops will I have to jump through? What's the
response?
Exactly.
Because essentially we're a training centre, and we kind of shook hands with the ETB just to get our accreditations, and they've been really good to us in terms of recognising that we don't want to compromise on the kind of the integrity of the work that we do, or in the trauma-informed piece. It's just,
your kind of mission.
The therapeutic work is core. It's the foundation of everything. But we also run a construction skills course, which they receive a diploma for, because it's a substantial time they spend with us. But we deliver all of that through craft, creativity, innovation. So they're always playing around with the skills that they learn and inventing new ways to kind of solve problems. I mean, ideally, they're the ones that will then establish businesses, which we have really supported. The enterprise strand of what we do is that they are the startups, and that they come back to us then to employ lads that they need. And so it's a kind of a cycle that grows and grows and grows. And
the lads have been taught trades as well.
All the trades.
So they can go into the construction world as well.
Yeah.
And that's the greatest. That gives them confidence as well. You know, because I remember.
Yeah, when you make something, there's something that's in the world, like something tangible, whether it be a table or a chair. It's like, you know, it's like you've taken something outside of you. And it exists outside you, and it's like an affirmation that you're actually alive. I know that sounds funny, but there's something really
some proves that you actually have made it.
Profound in that for men. It really is.
Can I ask you a question? I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball, so take your time with it. Okay. And it's not meant to be a curveball, but it is something that I think is important.
I like curveballs. Yeah.
Right? So take your time with it. If it was people out there who were sitting and they were listening to this, and they hadn't lived experience, but they felt maybe they would like to contribute something to this world that you're in, that you're living, that you're experiencing, what advice would you give them?
That if they wanted to contribute something to the work that I'm doing,
or the type of work,
this type of work in general.
If they were living in Dublin or Belfast or Galway or any part of the country, any part of the world, and they felt like it's something I think I would like to contribute in life. And
I would say go to therapy.
Yeah.
First step.
That's a good.
And ask yourself, why do I want to contribute?
Two things will happen there. One is you'll experience the work of the therapist, and you'll then learn more about yourself, which is like everything starts with you.
There.
Everything starts with you. Like we can't skip over that bit. And I think that needs to be like, you know, really, really said out loud a million times, that unless you are in personal therapy, taking care of yourself, know the terrain, the territory, have kind of, you know, done the Aboriginal walkabout of your own trauma, and know that so well that no matter who you sit with, whatever they bring up, you have the capacity to go there with them. That you recognize it, that you can hold it, that they might not be able, because it's like, first we need to help them remember. Then, you know, we need to help them reenact. And then it's able then to be processed properly.
And witness, the word you used a minute ago, is witnessed.
Yes. And that has to happen in relationship. Like relational, and that, like, you know, we don't talk about that in services. They don't talk about the quality of relationships. It's not something we measure. It's never something a funder asks about, you know, in an organization. What is the quality of your organization's relationships? How do you handle internal conflict? How happy are your staff? You know, you walk into some organizations that are, you know, meant to be in service to the community, whether it's rehabilitation or justice, and everyone's so miserable and fractured and worn out. Because you get worn out when you're not in your authentic self, or being fed through the relational field. And we're just not like aware or educated around that. So there's so many kind of gaps in our understanding of how this work could really be elevated. You know, we treat addiction completely separately. Then we treat, you know, anxiety and depression. Then we treat criminal convictions. Then we treat rehabilitation after prison. It's madness in my mind, because it's the roots of it all is the trauma that people have experienced. So it should
unresolved.
be
the unresolved.
Where are your views around criminal convictions, spent convictions?
I think, look, to me, it's madness going up, seeing people, you know, having to sign on after they've completed their time. It's madness to me that, you know, they have to make declarations for certain jobs where I know by the nature of the offence that, you know, it shouldn't be flagging on their vetting. And I think, there's definitely a piece of work to do around that. There's also a piece of work to do around, you know, there's discretion that people can apply. So, like, I think, and in some cities, we are elevating people's awareness around, because if I had my way and I had the funding, I would only employ people with criminal histories, or histories where they have been to the kind of dark places within themselves and come back again. Because to me, that's the best university you could ever go to. And they're the people I would scout for, you know, if I had the money. Like I was just like daydreaming as we had that meeting last Friday with the lived experience group, thinking what a fucking workforce this would be if we put them all to task. Like, Jesus, you could really change, make, you know, because as well as that, working class people are natural agitators. You know, they don't have a lot of power, but they have a spirit that just does not conform. And we need non-conformists badly.
And we do in the construction industry at the moment, because there's so much of a shortage. We spoke a bit about labour and stuff there a while back while we were on the phone, and what I do in construction and stuff. And I was just talking about maybe how the lads, how when you give them an opportunity, because they've enough of doors closed in their faces and behind their backs. When you give them an opportunity, the responsibility, they never forget it, and they will thank you for forever.
Forever.
And they will be so loyal to you. It's unbelievable.
It's beautiful, yeah.
You know, it's ridiculous. It's but there's just not enough people out there willing to give people with lived experience jobs like that. The construction industry is full of people who've been to prison, because they just fucking, we all just get on with it. And it's the best place for a lot of the lads as well, because a lot of the lads are visual learners, and you won't get them in offices and stuff.
Being physically exhausted is so good for your mind, you know, like exercising yourself to that extent. I think that's by nature how men should be using their time, is doing the tough physical work, because then, you know, you have, your mind is quieter a little bit, and you're able then to access things in a more reasonable way in the therapeutic space, rather than all of the energy being, you know, put into the defense mechanisms, which is what we would see a lot, you know.
Sorry, no, this again, just question from my head. I'm just conscious of time in case we do run out. Do you work with women?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was kind of adamant initially when we built the kind of model, and you know, I suppose we founded Limerick City Build. It was me and my father. I have to kind of give credit there to him. He kind of cleared the trees and put in huge amount of personal and financial investment into making this dream of ours possible. I suppose initially I was very, very clear about the fact that I wanted to just address men's and be very gender specific in how we approached the treatment of trauma and the therapeutic treatment of men. And it was such a contentious time because of the nature of the people we were working with. And I think we learned a lot that's how it should happen. That men are much less likely to open up to the extent that they do in our groups with, you know, women that they might fancy in amongst them, because it's going to throw it all off into they will revert to type, you know what I mean? So, but then in the last 2 years, I started working with women in a very different way. It's a very different style, very different approach. And so, because we have a new campus that we moved into just almost 2 years ago now. So it's like the dream site that we got in the city. So much potential. So it's a really exciting time for us.
It's great to hear.
Yeah. And I think it can hold the work of both men and women, because there's women out there that really, really do need support as well.
Yeah. There's probably not enough of services either for women. There's a lot there for men. But what I have noticed from working in the different prisons for the last few years is there's plenty there for men, but there's not a whole lot there for women. I don't know, is it because we have a small population? Reverse. Yeah.
So in Limerick, all of the good services, trauma services, like they're all in the women's, because it's a new wing that's developed, and underserved is the male population.
But I think that'd be the experience I'd have in Cork as well. Genuinely, I think there's, especially like homeless services, and there's lots of services there for women.
They're all in, the women have like wraparound services. And so I've been working with the governor of Limerick Prison around just making it more trauma aware. And I know we'll probably never get to a fully trauma informed prison. Happy. But even if we could just introduce awareness to the staff, that would be the goal that we have. And he's really on board because he's a real progressive governor we're lucky to have. So I'm excited to embark on some of that work too.
Brilliant.
Catherine, before we finish up, is there anything that we're also forgetting? Like around the PhD stuff, like we like there was masculinity. Well,
yeah, so it's masculinity, trauma, and culture. We kind of touched off everything there, didn't we? Yeah, I think we did. Yeah.
Is there anything you want to announce or anything you want to?
No, I think if people are interested in kind of my views, they can follow me on Unconventional Therapist on Instagram. And if anyone feels like, that's a service that, I know someone could really benefit from, they can get in touch either through any of the socials online. We're on every single medium. So, and I'm, also happy to, if there's any agencies out there who would like to offer their organization a kind of deeper, more comprehensive understanding of how to work with trauma rather than just understanding it on a kind of philosophical level, but actually on a practical skills-based level. I'm happy to support organizations to do that work too, because I think it's really, really important.
And I think that's very kind of you.
Yeah.
Because that could go a long way. Mm-hmm. I think it's much, much needed in a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion? There's maybe some of the people who be listening might be interested. There's a great book I recommend it to a lot of people, especially, I suppose, men from single parent families. Silent Sons. Did you ever hear of Silent Sons?
No, I didn't know.
I have it on my bookshelf at home. I got it years ago. You taught me.
I loved it. It's a lovely book to read. It's very simple. It's for every person. It's not even for therapists. It's for the lay person. It's a lovely book. For some of the men you're working with might fancy reading that. There's a lot of kind of tests in it and very, very kind of simple ways of understanding. Mm-hmm. You don't need a PhD for it. So a lot of lads would love just kind of it's a book they might read over the weekend.
Yeah, or we could even take turns in reading sections together. It's lovely.
Silent Sons, Robert Ackerman. So it's a nice book. Yeah, men and masculinity and all that stuff.
So listen, lads, Catherine, thank you so much. Thanks for coming down from Limerick and say hi to Darren and the lads and Rami.
Of course,
And Donny, thank you for joining us again. Thanks, and listen, lads, thank you so much again for listening to the Long Way Back podcast. I'm Timmy. I wish you all the best. God bless. Bye-bye.